Jump right back into it now with State Representative Brad Paquette. He's representing Michigan House District 37. Brad, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thank you for having me again, Steve.
All right, tell the folks where 37 is. Always want to keep people in mind of where you're calling home.
Almost as far south and west as you can go. So a little
go.
north of Notre Dame.
Boy, you can feel the anger rising out of Notre Dame today. So mad they're not even going to play in a bowl game. I'm just crushed by that. At any rate, hope your Fighting Irish friends are going to be okay. We'll send a welfare check over to them later. Let's talk about something serious, though. Michigan Democrats are rallying for childhood vaccines. In fact, all vaccines. When I was a kid, there was, 6 or 8 you got. Now it's like 68. The amount of vaccines given to kids now is exponentially higher than it was when I was a kid. What is your take on all this? The FDA had alleged that there have been a few deaths from COVID shots in children and different issues and the questions about the hepatitis B vaccine and so forth. Where do you come down on this?
Yeah, I applaud the decision of the ACIP there, removing that recommendation for hepatitis. When my babies were born, we declined to get that right when they were born, the hepatitis B shot. Mom was tested, didn't have it, great. And, when we declined these hepatitis B shots, the people looked at us like we were criminals. Like, what are you doing? You need to protect your children. It's like, no, well, we protect them from this shot. This is an unnecessary one for them. Also, when you look at how that hepatitis B shot was tested, it was only tested for about 5 days, and it was short term. And so our children are not getting sexually transmitted diseases. And this is something that when you decline such a thing, because here in Michigan, we have laws that allow the parents to choose. And what I heard in that press conference was a full court press to return us back to a COVID era where we in the state house were defending against vaccine passports and making daycares and schools post-vaccination rates. This is going to make neighbors distrust one another and point fingers and go back to that time where we had neighbors calling the cops on one another for too many people attending a birthday party. And I don't want to go there in any capacity.
I don't think anybody does. I would agree with you on that.
There's vaccine fatigue right now, for sure.
Right. I'm going to guess your kids do not have hepatitis B?
They do not. They are very healthy, and we are very grateful for what we've been given.
Right. Unless look, if the mother has hep B, I get it, right? So maybe you have to do something. If somebody's at risk of hepatitis B, they're an intravenous drug user, they're having, unprotected sex with, whoever, then you have a concern. That's not a concern of a newborn, generally speaking.
Not at all. No, in no capacity.
Right. So what about all the other vaccines? The measles getting a lot of attention right now. Measles used to be a disease where you'd get, a rash, you'd stay home, you'd eat some chicken soup, you'd watch daytime television, see if you could win the Price is Right showcase showdown. That's what you did with measles. And the death rate of measles prior to the vaccine was about 1 in 1,000 cases. That's terrible that one person would die in 1,000. But the chance of dying from the measles is very small. So why is this such a hot topic?
Well, I think there's a type of mentality, almost of a religion around vaccines, is that, the safe and effective, trust the experts. I've seen clips of, vaccine individuals that, are supporting these and they get kickbacks from them that say a child can get 10,000 vaccines. They're so safe. And this is something that is really interesting. There's Dr. Bob Malone on the ACIP actually mentioned that, these things are not, they're tested individually, to whatever that's warranted. And they're not tested, the children and the adverse reactions, when they're all given at once. And so parents that want to space these things out, they want to, make sure that their child, their baby, newborn baby, doesn't have all these,
and
foreign
Brad,
materials injected.
To be clear, you got some of the vaccines, right? You got some of the childhood vaccines. You just declined the Hep B and some other stuff, or did you decline all?
We declined all of them when they were first born.
And since then?
And we're still waiting.
Okay, so how old are the kids?
I have a 3-year-old and a 10-month-old.
I got you. I mean, they're little kids. It's pretty clear, though, polio vaccines, it worked. Certain vaccines have worked, but the studies on those were more in-depth, I suppose I would say. Look, the flu vaccine is 30% effective, maybe 40% effective, because they don't know. And yet they tell everybody to get a flu vaccine. If you go to the pharmacy today, you're probably going to see a sign to get your COVID booster. I'm sorry, pass. You fooled me once. You don't get to continue to fool me. To me, people that are still out getting the COVID vaccine probably have different issues. That's just me. Your thoughts?
Well, one point on the press conference is they had a little board there on their podium saying empowering parents and protecting communities. And one community that we do need to protect is the community of the vaccine injured. And so there are a couple of different comments that were made that were, I think, insult to vaccine injury, where they were saying that, people can self-report on the VAERS system, right? And Representative Long John made a comment that a person could get hit by a car and they could go on VAERS and they could self-report. Well, why don't we as policymakers come up with a database on our own here in Michigan to gather vaccine injury? Because they admitted that it's rare, but these individuals that rarely were injured by these shots are dismissed completely. And it's insult to vaccine injury by saying that someone who got the shot is anti-vax. They got these shots, but when they're injured by them, they're completely ostracized. And there's a big problem there. And I don't know if you heard about that Henry Ford study that contended to test truly unvaccinated versus vaccinated individuals, thousands of them. And the unvaccinated individuals in that study were much healthier. And they said that study was bunk. Well, let's do that study then. Let's fund that study. Let's get some true science out there around how these shots, the efficacy of these shots, and how they're impacting people.
Now, I just did a little research here. This is where AI helps me, folks, and helps you. COVID vaccine injuries, just the COVID vaccine injuries, 1 to 2 per 1,000 doses. So if you got it, 1 to 2 per 1,000 doses, which means it's higher than the incident of bad outcomes of measles prior to the vaccine. I mean, that's what I've just learned mathematically speaking here, right? I'll give you the last word here, Brad. It's an important topic. People are discussing it. Believe it or not, parents still have rights in America to decide for their children. I don't know how long we're going to have that, but for now we do. Last word to you.
We need to defend it at all costs. This is a huge step toward vaccine passports, and we need to oppose it tooth and nail. But also, and this is something that on the ACIP, a gentleman named Retzif Levi said that we need to be a little more humble. In light of at least 10 children dying from the COVID shot directly, we need to be a little more humble when we go about this, especially when we talk to one another, because there are a lot of different, looking down, stubbing your nose at people who are questioning the efficacy of these things. And that's not what science does. No one is the king of science. No one has all the answers. And that's something that many individuals are contending that they are the kings of science, and that anyone who questions, and that's what the cycle of inquiry is all about. That's the scientific method, is you question and you gather, you observe, you hypothesize, and then you go back to the drawing board. And when we have on the VAERS reports, as you mentioned with the mRNA shots, there were more instances of adverse reactions from the COVID shots than there were in the last 40 years of all the other shots.
Right.
And
exactly.
So there are a lot of people concerned about this right now, and we need to embrace them. We don't need to ostracize them.
We need to have a conversation. That's what we're doing here. Brad, thank you as always.
Thank you, Steve.
Really appreciate it. Brad Paquette, he's right down there in Notre Dame country. I think they have an illness too, but it's different. It's just different. We'll ask Brock Palmbush about that. Anyhow, we'll take a break and be back on the Steve Gruber Show with Ivy.